We see a train driving down train tracks. As it drives by, a sign that says, Ziltramite, your survival and your future. We see Kesia on the stretcher as she is half awake. We see she's slurring her words and she says,
Where are we? Where are we?
The soldier says, shh, as she passes out. We see the train approaching a train station and guarded by several soldiers dressed in black. The train then stops. We see the soldiers get off the train and they walk up to a woman in a fancy suit who is writing stuff down on a clipboard, and the woman says, "What do you have to offer me, gentlemen?" One of the soldiers says, "Mission is requested. We got a 1015 in custody ready for transport." The woman asks, "And? Is that all?" The soldier says, "Yes, ma'am." The woman says to the soldiers, "Hopefully Commander will see this as enough." We see them taking the next prisoner into the train station building as the two soldiers are walking with this prisoner. They bring the prisoner into the room and remove the bag off their head. As we see, it's Kesia. She gets put into an interrogation room. We see a soldier on the other side of a mirror as they sit down behind a camera and press record, as they speak into a microphone and they say, "All right, how many today?" We hear another voice saying, "Just one in custody, Officer Helix." Helix says, "Just the one, huh? Wow. Finding less and less out there, gentlemen. The commander won't be happy." Kesia says, "Who the hell are you? What the hell is this?" Officer Helix interrupts and says, "Stand on the white line, please." She steps forward as we see big flashes going off, and Officer Helix says, "What's your name?" Kesia looks pissed and says, "Why did you bring me here?" Officer Helix says, "Your name." Kesia says, "Kesia Taylor." He says, "Where are you from?" Kesia says, "Washington. At least, that's where I was when you took me." Officer Helix says, "Any ties to any outside parties or alliances out there that we may have to worry about?" Kesia lies and says, "No, sir. None." Officer Helix says, "Good. We are in a safe place with good people helping this community thrive. If you pass your training, you get to see it. If you don't, you won't. Do you understand?" Kesia says, "Yes, sir. I understand." Officer Helix says, "We appreciate your cooperation. And here's the beginning of the rest of your life. Welcome to Ziltramite." Back in Kingstonville, We see Haley and Nathan in the waiting room of the Kingstonville hospital, and the doctor comes out and says, "Well, I have good news. Vivian will pull through." Nathan hugs him and says, "Oh my God, thank you so much, doctor." The doctor says, "She's lost a lot of blood, so it'll be a slow recovery, but she'll be okay." Haley says, "Thank you, Dr. Adams." We see her walking the streets as she hears Bruce says at the front gate, "Hey, they're back!" Everyone runs to the gate as Haley is just standing there and Tom is saying, "Haley! Haley!" He sees her standing there and right away walks up to her and hugs her tight and says, "I'm so fucking sorry. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Haley says, "I'm not, but I will be." We see everyone looks broken as everyone comes out of the vehicles and they all stand there in absolute shock as Sydney says, "Oh my God, Roger, what the hell happened?" Roger says, "I got bit. Miles here saved my life." Amelia says, "All right, let's get him to the infirmary now." Dave walks up to Haley and hugs her and he says, "We're gonna check on Roger, make sure he's okay. Then, I want us all to sit the hell down. I want to know every detail about what happened that night." Haley says, "Okay, just make sure he's alright first." Who are these people? We see Colin and Rebecca and their friends get out, and Dave says, "New alliances we found on the road. They're also victims of the apostles." Rivers walks up and says, "Hey, Haley. Look, I know I'm new here, and I didn't know him for long, but I'm here right now because your husband took a chance on me. I'm so sorry for your loss." She hugs her as Haley hugs everyone else that made it back, as we see her walk up to Colin and Rebecca and says, "I heard you saved my friends in the city. Thank you." Colin says, "Well, thank Rivers. She was very convincing and kind to us given the situation we were in." And Haley says, "Bruce, can you get these guys checked up and settled?" Bruce says, "Sure, follow me." And finally, Ashley gives Haley Lincoln's bike back, and she says, "We found this on our way back." She looks emotional and says, "I tried to kill him. I tried. I didn't, but I had to try." Haley hugs her too and says, "Thank you." Ashley looks surprised that Haley has accepted her, as we see everyone is back together in Kingstonville. Back at the Apostle Nest, we see everyone eating in the cafeteria as we then see everyone stops talking as they all then turn around to see a pair of boots walking up to them slowly. As we pan up, we see Bishop is back. He's made it home and he says, "Sorry, I know I've looked better. This was the doing of Ashley. I know we all cared for her very much. As did I, for a long time. But Henry, Sam, Barb, the others, she was the one who killed them. Ashley has family with these murderers in Kingstonville, and I believe she fell in with them. I tried to stop her, but she ended up stopping me. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sure what happens next. We are neck deep in a war that I'm afraid can't be undone. So we need to stay strong during these troubled times, okay?" Everyone looks nervous and he says, "Sorry, as you were," as he walks away. Back with Kesia. We see a train driving by as we see Kesia with her hands tied as she is sitting with a few other prisoners, being taken somewhere, as one of them says, "Hey, you know where they're taking us?" Kesia says, "No, but I ain't staying here any longer than I have to." The guy says, "You come from somewhere?" Kesia still isn't sure who she can trust here, so she says, "I'm a lone wolf. I've been out there surviving on my own for years." The guy says, I
I killed my girlfriend. She had lost who she was. So I killed her before she killed me. After that, I was on my own till one day I saw the signs. Now, I'll be safe forever.
Kesia says, "You believe this is safe? All this looks like to me is Call of Duty meets Red Dead Redemption. And it's most definitely not my lifestyle." We then see a big base guarded by soldiers. As the train stops, we see Kesia along with a few random prisoners get off the train. As 3 soldiers stand in front of them and one of them says, "Line up!" Kesia along with the other prisoners line up and the soldier says, "You are here because you passed the screening process, which means you've been deemed useful to the commander of Zamite. Your next step is showing us what you are capable of. You are instructed to kill the deadheads as long as we see fit. It's all about skills and speed. Our commander chooses the best killers in the place and promotes them to his family in Zamite. You get a life, just like the one before. Electricity, jobs, housing, and much more. But you have to earn it. Our commander is very particular about who he lets in." We see 2 prisoners running away as we see 2 soldiers trying to stop them as the 2 prisoners run off into the woods. As we then see they both get sniped and killed by the soldiers. As Kesia looks very uneasy seeing this and says, "Jesus Christ." As the soldier says, "You'll go in groups of 3. You get as many kills as you can. Don't waste your chance." Back in Kingstonville, we see Luke and Ashley sitting in the infirmary with Roger, and Luke says, "I can't believe you made it, man." Roger says, "Well, I'm full of surprises, man. Although I do wish I didn't have to go running around with one hand." Luke says, "Why don't you swing by the house later? I may have something cool for you to try on." Roger says, "Thanks, buddy. You know, it's good to have friends. They always help you push on, you know?" Luke says, "Damn right. Well, I'll let you get some rest, brother." They walk out as Luke says to Ashley, "You can stay with me until we find you a free house. I got a spare room that you can use." Ashley says, "Oh, thanks. You didn't have to do that." Luke says, "Well, all things considered, if it wasn't for that armor of yours, you may have died trying to get me out of there. I most certainly owe you." Ashley says, "Thank you. Oh, and I promise I won't be a burden, okay?" Luke says, "Don't worry. Last year, Dave renovated Tom's house. And guess who had to give him a spare room for the week until it was ready?" Ashley says, "Fair enough. He drive you nuts?" Luke says, "Oh, Tom? Yeah, big time. Looks like Dave wants to have a meeting to go over what happened. You gonna be there?" Ashley says, "Of course. I should say my piece." Luke says, "Oh, and by the way, there's hot showers, fresh food, and a bunch of other shit at my place. Go crazy." Ashley says, "Thanks, Luke." As he walks away, she whispers to herself, "Wow. A hot shower?" We see Colin lining up some targets for target practice, as we see him grabbing a rifle. As he fires a few shots, as we see Rebecca walks up to him and she says, "Ooh, nice." Colin says, "Everything check out?" Rebecca says, "Yeah. Not the most fun screening process I've ever had, but I get it." Colin says, "Yeah. A place as fortified as it is, I get the rules." Rebecca says, "Jake would have loved this place," meaning his brother. Rebecca says, "I think he'd be shocked that a place like this still exists." Colin says, "Oh, I know he would, but I hate to say it, after what we did yesterday, we're in now. That's simple." Rebecca says, "Yeah. Mind if I give it a try?" He gives her the gun, as we then see her fire. Back at the Apostle Nest, we see Bishop cleaning himself off, as we see all the cuts on him from Ashley. As he is wiping the blood, he then sees a note drop out of his jacket pocket. As he looks at it, and then we see him walking out of the bunker, as we see Apostle Cheryl on the beach. As we see he walks up to her, and she says, "Oh my God, sir, you look horrible." Bishop says,
"Yeah, I've seen better days, I can't lie. But, I'm here for something else."
He looks sad and kneels down and says,
"I took Fallon out there today, and I shouldn't have."
Cheryl says, "Where is he?" Bishop doesn't answer, and she says, "Where is he, Bishop?" Bishop pulls out the letter and says,
"We went out there today trying to contain a threat to this place. In return, he and many others paid the price with their lives. I'm sorry. I tried to save him, but I couldn't."
Cheryl breaks down as he gives her the letter, and he says,
"He wanted me to give this to you. I'm so sorry, Cheryl."
Cheryl says, "Wait, so you sent him out there?" Bishop says,
"I took him with me because Ashley was on the loose. I needed assistance to help me take her down."
Cheryl says, "Yeah, because you couldn't let something go that happened years ago. You let revenge drive you, and now? Are you seriously telling me that my husband died because of your sins?" Bishop says,
"Cheryl, let me explain."
Cheryl says, "There's nothing to explain. My husband is dead because of you. This place used to be good. It used to be a safe place with good people. Now we're just heartless assassins." She walks away. Bishop just sits there and looks at the cuts on his hands, as he then has a look of doubt. Back with Kesia. We see her being led to a room, as we see a big room of about 40 to 50 prisoners, and each one has a bunk bed, and Kesia gets hers and just lays back on it. We see another bunk bed beside her is a father and his son. As Kesia sees, there's even kids in this labor camp, as she looks shocked and says, "Hey, I got a free one here if you want." The guy says,
"Hey, thanks."
The little boy says, "Daddy, is it okay if I take the top bunk?" The guy says, Sure, as long as this woman here doesn't mind." Kesia says, "Oh no, it's no problem." The boy says, "Thank you," as he climbs up to the top and says, "Wow, this is cool, Dad." The dad says, "All right, just be careful up there, bud. I don't want you falling, all right?" Kesia asks the dad, "How did you get here?" He says, "Me and my boy have been out there traveling for a better part of 4 years now. After our camp was raided by some bandits, we all just went our separate ways. Me and Ben have been out here surviving ever since. Till recently. We heard the messages about this place. We saw the signs. I should have known. I should have gone with my gut, damn it, but we went anyway." Kesia says, "Can you please tell me where we are?" The dad says, "I'm sorry. Me and my boy were traveling out on the roads in Maine when they took us. We were blindfolded here." Kesia says, "You think there's a way out? I gotta get the hell out of here." The man says, "Well, do you have somewhere you need to get back to?" Kesia says, "No. I'm just saying that this place ain't where we're supposed to be. Labor camps and soldiers with technology and rules and laws. All that shit died a long time ago." The man says, "I do agree with that. Laws are dead, which is what makes this whole world more deadly." As we see, Kesia looks horrified by that statement. As we hear a group of soldiers walk in, all the prisoners then stand up. Kesia does the same as we hear one of the soldiers says, "Your work begins tomorrow. The commander has built a home for you to rebuild the world. If you pass, you get to see it. If not, you will be something dead another lucky winner will have to put down." The soldiers then leave them for the night, as Kesia looks on edge, and the guy says, "Hey, I'm Eddie." Kesia says, "I'm Kesia," as we see her make a potential alliance within the inside. Back in Kingstonville, we see Jim sitting in his cell as we see Julia bringing him one of his meals as he says, "Wow, didn't expect to see you here." Julia says, "Shut up, asshole. I'm here because nobody else wants to deal with your pathetic ass." And I honestly can't blame them. Jim says, "Your daddy's still out there? Or did he just bite the bullet like he was always destined to do out there? And if you're not careful, you may be joining him real soon, especially with the way the rules around here work." We then hear the door opens as Tom walks in and says, "Good to be home. What are y'all talking about anyway?" Julia says, "Nothing, just bringing him his food." Tom says, "Well, that's convenient. Was just coming down here to see how you were doing. Instead, I hear this jackass with his big mouth outside the fucking door. Hey, buddy, listen to me. Hey, right here. There you go. Keep your comments about my daughter out of your fucking mouth, or else I'll get rid of you, alright?" Jim says, "You can't do that. There's laws here, and those laws won't be broken. At least, that's what the widow said." Tom says, "Yeah. Well, in the state she's in, you're lucky she hasn't put you down already there, bud." He walks out as Julia goes with him, as they walk out of the cell together, and Tom says, "Are you okay?" Julia says, "I'm not. But it's not him. It's this place. Ever since Lincoln, this place just feels so goddamn empty, Dad. It just doesn't feel the same anymore." Tom looks like he's holding back tears and says, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." She hugs him and he says, "We better get to the meeting." We see Ashley walking down the street as Amelia runs into her and says, "Oh my God, it's Ashley, right?" Ashley says, "Yeah. You were at that camp, right?" Amelia says, "I thought you died. Oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. Maybe that even gives me more hope that my husband is out there too." Ashley doesn't know what to say, and Tom walks up to them and says, "You guys ready?" Amelia says, "Yeah, as ready as I'm gonna get." Tom says, "Hey, Ashley, right?" Ashley says, "It's nice to finally meet you. You're Tom, right?" Tom says, I was really close with your brother. He was one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. So, like it or not, you're automatically part of my family." Ashley smiles and says, "Thanks. Sorry, this whole thing is just kind of strange for me." Tom says, "You'll get used to it. Say, after this is done, after Lincoln's funeral today, I got a place I'd love to show you." Ashley says, "Oh yeah, Luke mentioned it. What was it called again?" Dave says, "Guys, you coming?" Tom says, "Yeah, I'll show you later." We see everyone in the council meeting room. As everyone is gathering up, we then see Ashley walk in as we see Haley, Tom, Dave, Luke, Sydney, Miles, Julia, Amelia, and Catherine. As we see all of what's left of the council members are here, as Dave says, "So that night, when Lincoln died, how exactly did that happen?" Haley says, "We were dealing with a murder within our walls. Patrols were getting picked off left, right, and center. Lincoln decided he wanted to go out there to see for himself if they were okay. He wanted to bring them home, alive or dead. Zach was the one who killed them. When Lincoln discovered the truth, Zach took him. He took us all, and Zach was a snake. He's James's son, and his real name is Isaac." Dave looks pissed and says, "That little shit. I trained him. I showed him the way. That fucker punked me." Haley says, "And that little shit brought my husband to James, and when they had us surrounded in the dark, we met the leader. He was an old Viper resident, and he wanted revenge on Lincoln for the city. His face was burned, and he looked half dead. He barely looked alive. And he
He had James kill Lincoln with a chainsaw in front of all of us. They proceeded to take Luke. The only reason he's here is because of Ashley.
Ashley then looks at Amelia, and she knows what she needs to do. And she says,
Our leader. He was called Bishop to his apostles. But that wasn't his real name.
She looks at Amelia and says,
Your husband's alive.
Amelia looks shocked and says,
What? What?
Ashley says,
I'm sorry.
Amelia says,
How the fuck is that possible?
Ashley says,
Ryan was still in the city when it got attacked. He got badly injured and he was almost unrecognizable when we found him. We found Ryan out there in the rain and we took him in. Xavier was the original leader of the apostles. We both took your husband in a few years back.
Amelia says, Xavier?
Ashley says, Xavier died a while ago. He wanted your husband to lead us, so that's what he did. I'm so sorry, Amelia. I thought you were dead. I didn't think you were alive, let alone here.
Amelia says,
This guy? And my husband? That's not him. He wouldn't. He isn't.
Ashley says,
Trust me, Amelia. I wouldn't lie to you. Your husband is not the same man anymore. He lied to me about Lincoln. He tried to tuck me away while he killed my brother in cold blood. He's not a well man anymore, Amelia.
Amelia says,
I don't believe that. He's my husband. He's no monster.
Dave says, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of us would see that differently.
Amelia says, That's not the man I know. He's not like...
Tom says,
Amelia, I'm sorry. But if you don't believe us, why don't you tell me who the hell this belonged to?
He pulls out his jacket and gives her the photo of herself that he found in the city. As she then takes it, she breaks down. Julia says,
So this Ryan? The one I brought into the city? He's Bishop?
Tom says, Hey, we're not going to place blame just yet, okay?
You couldn't have known, Julia says. I can vouch for Amelia here. The man that I led into the city was a normal and friendly person.
Haley says,
Well, he changed. Let me remind you of the funeral we're about to have today. He was also a good man. And he's gone.
Julia says,
I don't know. But something in him is broken, and I know that for sure. I know that.
We then see it's too much for Amelia. We see the door slams as Amelia walks out, and Haley says, just let her go. Okay, let her go. Dave says,
Well, like it or not, I'm killing that son of a bitch. There's no possible conclusion to this story where that guy lives. And I'm gonna make sure of that.
Ashley says,
I'm with Dave.
Haley says, so am I. As we see, pretty much everyone in the room agrees, and even Julia says,
Lincoln was our leader, and my friend. This Ryan is dead to me. That's simple.
Haley says,
All right, let's all just cool off for now, all right? We got a lot to plan for.
Everyone walks out, and Dave and Tom hang back, and Tom says,
Hey, Haley?
Haley says,
Yeah.
Tom says,
At the funeral today, I'd like to share a few words. Dave, too.
Haley says,
Thanks. I think a lot of people will want to see that.
They walk out as Haley just sits there in this room, all alone. As we see, she pulls out her gun and she says,
There's only one way this ends. Only one.
Back at the Apostle Nest, we see Cheryl sitting in her room crying. As we hear a knock at the door, she says, Go away. We hear another knock and she says, I don't want company, please. We hear another knock as she unlocks the door. We see James walks in with a bottle of liquor and he says, How are you holding up? Cheryl says, I'm not.
James says, well, that's exactly why I brought it over. Cheryl says, no, James, I've been sober for almost a year. James says, well, I doubt one drink is gonna hurt. Come on. Cheryl gives in and says, give me one. He pours her a glass and she takes the drink as we see a small smirk on his face. Back with Kesia. We see she wakes up to bright lights being turned on as we see the soldiers saying, everyone up! We then see all the prisoners lining up outside as we see a big wall in front of them. We see they are being handed a big double-edged spear. As Kesia is standing with Eddie and Ben, we then see she says, hey, wanna be a team? Eddie says, sure. Nobody else around here wants to approach me and my son anyway, so thanks for being so nice. Kesia says, it's no problem. We're gonna make it through this together. This place ain't for kids. The soldier then says, ready weapons. On my mark, go. We then see the wall opens as we see deadheads coming towards them. We then see the dead are running towards them as we then see everyone stabbing one after another. There's so many of them coming at once that some of the prisoners start getting taken down and eaten alive. Blood then sprays onto Kesia and she looks horrified. As we then see Ben behind Eddie, as Eddie is killing the deadheads as he says, we gotta retreat. Kesia says, we know what happens when people run away. It's either surviving this or not surviving at all, as they keep killing the deadheads together. Back at the Apostle Nest. We then see Cheryl is drunk as she's saying, I'm telling you, James, my husband shouldn't have been out there. He shouldn't have been targeted. He shouldn't have been out there in the first place. Now it's too fucking late. It's too goddamn late. James says, maybe. Cheryl says, what? James says, well, think about it. Ever since Bishop took over, it's been death after death. Now your husband included. And where is the justice for that? Cheryl says, and what are we gonna do, James? He's our bishop. James says, he's fucking pathetic. He's a pathetic little man who got your husband killed. Ain't that right? But what if we change that? What if there was a way to get him out of the picture? Maybe have a new leader. Cheryl says, what do we do? James then smirks and says, well, first order of business is the full destruction of Kingstonville and their residents. We take them down. Take all of them down. And after, we cut off the head of the snake here. We end this war ourselves. Take this place for ourselves. And we make sure no one will ever suffer under Bishop's rule ever again. Cheryl says, I know why I want Bishop dead. Tell me. Why do you? James says, 'cause he's a lying shit leader that gets people killed. Cheryl says, what about your brother? Why did you want him dead? As he looks at her and says, my brother is why my wife is dead. Cheryl looks shocked and says, so your brother is what Bishop is to me, huh? James says, yeah, you could say that. Cheryl takes another drink and says, well, what's our first move? James looks at her with a look of confidence. Back with Kesia. We see Kesia is covered in blood as we see most of the prisoners are tired out, but Kesia is still going. We see some of the soldiers are catching wind of this as Kesia knows they're watching her, so she goes above and beyond and kills as many as she can until the rest of the group of the deadheads are down. We see all of them look out of breath as we see one of the prisoners is then trying to run away from this, as once again, the soldier shoots them down. But this time, they shoot them in the leg as he falls and he yells as the soldier walks up to Kesia and says, well done, Kesia Taylor. The commander will be impressed. Kesia says,
What's next? The soldier says, I'm glad you asked. You're my favorite out here today, but I want to see how badly you truly want this. He gives her a pistol as they walk up to the prisoner with his leg shot on the ground, and the soldier says, Take it. Kesia takes the gun and he says, You've seen what we do with runners. They are deemed useless to us. And from what I saw from you here today, you aren't useless. Maybe. I need to see you're all in with this. Now, you can try to use that gun to take me out, which wouldn't be the smartest idea in the world, but to each their own. Or, you can use it to do what all Ziltramite soldiers do. Eliminate the threat. Kesia raises the gun as she looks like she really doesn't want to do this, as the prisoner is on the ground saying, Please, please, don't shoot me, please, please. Kesia stands there with the gun raised as she looks back at Eddie and Ben as Eddie says, Don't watch, son. Kesia then stands there and she knows this is her in as she looks at the man face to face as she thinks about everyone back home. As she then pulls the trigger and ends his life. The soldier takes the gun from her and says, Great work. The conductor will be very proud of his new project. As he walks away, as Kesia looks horrified with herself, as she stands there covered in blood. Back in Kingstonville, we see everyone going into the Kingstonville church as we see a father up there saying, We're gathered here today to honor and celebrate our wonderful leader, known as Lincoln West. A man of many talents, from father to survivor to leader. He did it all, and he did it all in his own way. Many people in this very room wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for him. We see Billy looks like he's trying to hold back tears as everyone looks completely broken. As the father says, We would now like to ask Tom Tremblay to come up and share a few words. Tom walks up and says, I'm sorry to all of you. I know we're all feeling it, and that's why I wanted to do this. You know, when I first met Lincoln, I thought of him as a potential threat. It's true. But someone I cared for very much convinced me otherwise. And I'm glad he did, because I got a family because of it. I got a home. I have friends. And none of that would be possible without my apocalypse brother. The only man that I knew right away that understood me. And I'll never forget that. Thank you. Everyone applauds him. As we then see Dave walks up and says, I wanted to do this because, Lincoln and I, we never always saw eye to eye on things. It was only a few years ago that we tried to put our differences aside. And I'm glad I did, because he was the big reason that things started turning around for me. And now I have a family because of it. He led with emotions. And that's what Lincoln always had, was a lot of emotions as a leader. He died for everyone in this room and out there. I mean, how beautiful is that? Who can say that they gave their lives so that several people can have their own, for generations to live? He knew what he was sacrificing his life for, and I always had respect for him. And even when we didn't see eye to eye, I respected what he was trying to do. I did. Goodbye, old friend. You did a lot for me, and I will do the same for others in your honor. So let's all bow our heads in silence. As we see tears coming down Haley's face, as everyone stands up, as we see a ray of sunshine coming through the church, as Tom smiles and says, I knew you wouldn't miss this, brother. Back with Kesia, we see her sitting in her own bed as Eddie says, You had to do it.
He wasn't giving you a choice. Kesia says, well, it's pretty clear what this place is. Well, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that if you don't join this, what feels like a cult, you're looked at as useless and they kill you to keep their psycho society safe. Eddie says, so what's the plan now? Kesia whispers to him, we get in. There's no getting out. So now, we go all in with this, till we become so important to this place that we can escape. We then reveal there's a camera on them from up high, as we see someone is watching them from somewhere else, as they hear every last thing that Kesia said to him. Later on, we see Kesia, Eddie, and some more prisoners clearing deadheads as we then see the sun going down. As Kesia is killing a whole bunch of them, as we see Eddie says, I go right, you go left, we'll cover more at a time. Kesia sees how many deadheads are all around and she doesn't look sure, but she says, okay. As they split off, we see Kesia takes on more deadheads in front of her. Meanwhile, Eddie is killing several of them, as we see one of these deadheads has their head down, as we see something in their mouth, as Eddie is about to kill it. The mouth opens. We see it makes a very different sound as it aggressively grabs Eddie and takes him down, as it devours him, as his face is getting eaten, and the skin starts peeling off of his face as the blood is all over this deadhead's mouth. Kesia hears this and runs to him, as we see her stab this deadhead with her spear, as she looks at the deadhead and notices the mouth is very different. As we see what's left of Eddie's face is just a puddle by now. As we see Kesia then looks upset and is horrified as she sits there in shock. Back in Kingstonville, we see Amelia packing a bag as we hear a knock at her door. She answers it. We see it's Ashley, and she says, hey, I didn't see you at the funeral. What the hell is going on? Amelia says, because I don't know who the hell I feel sorry for, Ashley. My husband is out there, and I need to know both sides of the story here. Ashley says, so you're running away. Amelia says, that's the thing, Ashley. I'm not running anywhere, but I need to see him. I need to see my husband. I'm not leaving for good, but maybe I can talk to him. Maybe I can let him see the errors of his ways. Ashley says, Amelia, there's no stopping this war. Have you seen how angry these people are out there? Amelia says, well, you tell me. How many people are angry at Ryan's place too? Ashley doesn't answer, and Amelia says, exactly. I'll be back. Maybe not for a while, but I will be back. She starts walking out, and Ashley says, what the hell do I tell everyone when they ask where you are? Amelia says, tell them I'll be back soon. Ashley is saying, Amelia! And as the door shuts, Amelia! Fuck. Back with Kesia. We see her walking up to Ben as we see Ben crying as she says, hi, is it okay if I sit down? Ben nods and says, did you see my dad? Kesia says, I did. I tried to save him, but your daddy was already getting swarmed. I'm so sorry, kid. There's nothing else I could have done. Ben breaks down and says, what am I gonna do? My dad can't protect me anymore, and I can't. Kesia says, hey, I'm not gonna let anything happen to you, okay? We see she feels responsible for Eddie's death, and she says, listen, I know you don't know me, kid, and you didn't ask for this, okay? I didn't either. But like it or not, we're stuck together now, okay? Ben says, you won't leave me too, will you? But then Kesia sits there and thinks about everyone back home as she then looks at Ben and she says, never.
As they hug, we then see the same soldier walks up to Kesia and says, "Kesia Taylor, we are taking you to your final screening. You have successfully passed your time here. You're coming with us." Kesia looks at Ben and says, "I'm not going anywhere without this young guy here." The soldier says, "The orphan?" Kesia says, "You heard me." The soldier says, "All right, we'll take him. But you're going to have to take it up with the conductor." Kesia says, "Okay." We then see they both get in this really fancy train as they then drive away together. Kesia and Ben are sitting in the train together as we see a fancy bar, first-class style seats, and big lights as a waitress walks up to them and says, "Hello, Kesia Taylor and Benjamin Lee. It is my great pleasure to have you on board. There's fresh clothes in the back and a room for you to get washed up if you like." Kesia looks so put off by this as she says, "Thanks, I guess." The waitress says, "No problem. I'm Lainey. If you need anything, you can ask me. Welcome to Ziltramite." As we then see Kesia walks out with new clothes, same with Ben, as they sit there by the window as they're served a hot meal. And as Kesia looks out the window, we see another sign as the train drives by. We see once again, Ziltramite, your survival and your future. Back in Kingstonville, we see Tom walking the streets as we hear through the window, "Man, you really rubbing it in, I see." Tom sees Jim and Jim says, "Believing you were actually following a good person. Wow. I forgot how brainwashed he made everyone." Tom then slowly walks down to the cell and walks in as he walks up to the guard and Tom says, "Take a lunch break." The guard says, "I already had lunch." Tom says, "Then take a supper, buddy." The guard gives him the keys as it's now just Tom and Jim here. As Tom walks up to the cell bars and says, "You know, when I first came here, I was here to finish a fight I started a while ago. Now he's my friend. This place, it showed me things can change. You know, I've been thinking about what you said before, and it's true. Things are changing." Jim looks a bit on edge, and Tom says, "Laws are dead. Rules are dead. Lincoln's dead. And so are you." He then stabs him right in the throat as the blood gushes out and spills all over the floor, as Tom lets him die as he spits on him, and he says, "We are all outlaws now." As he walks out of the cell, as we see he walks away, fully enraged with his life. We see a montage as we see Bishop sitting in a dark room, as he then is watching an old video of the news, as we then see the video is of Ryan when he was on the news, as we hear him saying on the old video, "Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be doing this for my community. It's a hard time for others. And we have to remember the innocents that are hurt every day by the unfortunate circumstances of this world." We see Amelia walking through the woods as we see her looking out in the distance as she sees a beach up ahead. Ryan's overvoice says, "Some people need help in these troubled times, and if you have a chance to save them, you take it." We see James, Cheryl, and several other apostles standing on a hill as they are spying on Kingstonville from a distance, as Ryan says, because not everyone will go out of their way to do something nice for others. Ashley looks worried, and Ryan says, "And some people feel the hurt from the cruelty of others." We see Jim laying there dead, as Ryan says, "And sometimes bad things happen." We see Tom sitting in his house drinking whiskey still covered in blood, and Ryan says, "Sometimes you have to get used to it, or it consumes you." We see Kesia in the train looking out of the view as Ryan says, "But sometimes we can make things just a little bit better for those that need help." As we see it shows Ben, the person Kesia is helping. And finally, we see Bishop. He sees this as it's bothering him, and he turns off the TV and he says,
"Your self-respect should be stronger than your feelings."
We see Bruce taking out his barbecue, as he then calls up Tom and says, "Hello." Tom is covered in blood and he says, "Oh man, it's not a good time, man." Bruce says, "Tom, you promised after Lincoln's funeral that we would throw the biggest damn party in the history of parties. Come on, man, where's your ambition?" Tom says, Bruce, I just don't know if I can do it." Bruce says, "Hang on." We see he gives the phone to Rivers and she says, "Hey Tom, can't wait for your party tonight." Tom gets right up and says, "Hey Rivers, I didn't expect to hear from you." "Wait, are you coming too?" Rivers says, "Of course, everyone in Kingstonville is coming to this thing, man. You gotta host it." Tom then says, "Well, on second thought, let me get my best suit and do myself up a little bit, alright? I'll be right over." He hangs up and runs to his room with Joy. Bruce then hangs up and looks at Rivers and says, "Yeah, I knew that would do the trick." We see Tom fully showered as he's dressed in a big suit. He then runs out the door and yells, "Are you ready for a party, Kingstonville?"
I don't know! Would anyone here like to